رب صل على نبيك دائما
في هذه الدنيا وباس ثاني.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Recently, I came across a video by a Catholic YouTube channel, and it was in response to a question that Christians ask, which is, why did Jesus have wounds after the resurrection? The answer is given by Father Gregory Pine, and first of all, he talks about the wounds as being something that is suffered in a personal way. He talks about the integrity, agility of Jesus Christ, and he puts it into the broader context of Jesus Christ, having all these powers, going through walls and disappearing, and also having those wounds. And he wants us to think about the design of the incarnation, the question of why did God take on the human body. Christians believe that Jesus Christ is God incarnate, which means that God the Son took on a human body and formed a union, which is, the technical term for it is the Hypostatic Union. And the whole purpose of that is to take away the sins of humanity. And he also talks about other purposes of this incarnation, which includes increasing our faith, hope, and charity. And then going back to the root causes for taking on the body, he gives the argument that Jesus Christ took on everything. All of human nature, all of the weaknesses, hunger, fatigue, even death. And the only thing that Jesus Christ did not take was sin. But everything else that was part of human nature, Jesus Christ took. And he talks about expressing of solidarity, that Jesus took on these wounds in order to express solidarity, establish his identity as the risen Christ who has taken on the sins of humanity. And he talks about Jesus being Emmanuel, God with us, or God for us. And the idea was for him to identify with human weaknesses and all that. In the end, he talks about speculative theology, that there is these are different ideas that are part of a speculative theology. And in response to what he has said, I will begin with this speculative theology aspect, which is basically the crux of the problem. The promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, peace be upon him, has stated in many of his writings that the issue with Christian doctrine is that a lot of times they present their own ideas and their own speculation instead of what Jesus said, and not even from the Bible itself. A lot of what was discussed in this video that I'm responding to is based on Father Gregory's ideas. There was hardly any, in fact, no quotation from the Bible that I can think of that I could detect. I couldn't find any reference to the Bible that they mention, and so it's all speculation. It's a belief, it's an idea that Jesus Christ is God, and so they try to explain it in different ways. And in this case, it's Father Gregory who's explaining all of this. So what does this all mean? All of this means that there is no evidence from the Bible, there is no evidence from the words of Jesus Christ himself that he is God. Of course, we have the primary question, where did Jesus say, I am God? And the answer is nowhere. There's not a single verse where Jesus clearly says that he is God in absolute terms, without having any interpretation or any kind of other speculation related to it. And then back to the question about these wounds. So after the resurrection, Jesus Christ is seen with these wounds. Where did they come from? Why does he have those wounds if he is now the risen Christ? And there is one aspect of this theology, which is that Jesus Christ has taken on the body, the human body, for eternity, for all of eternity. In all of future, he will have a human body, and presumably a body which has those wounds from the resurrection. So the question is, why such a defective body that Jesus Christ has now taken up or taken on? And the problem is that when it comes to identifying, there was a discussion about identifying. How do you identify a human being? We identify a human being by knowing some of the characteristics of human beings, like human beings have a certain form, or they have certain abilities. They get hungry when they need to eat food, or they get tired after a long day, or they experience sickness or pains of different kinds. In the case of Jesus Christ, he's showing all these attributes. He's showing all these characteristics. He is hungry at times. In the Gospels, it is mentioned at one point he became hungry and he went to the fig tree. Right? He did become tired on occasion. He did become thirsty on occasion. And we are told that he was born just as human beings are born. And so he went through the pains of childbirth, and there was pain involved in his birth. And there was obviously, when he was growing up as a child, there are different kinds of pains, like having your teeth. When we have our teeth, our baby teeth, there's pain involved, right? And later on, those teeth are replaced and there's pain involved there as well. And then we get sick and there's pain involved there as well. So Jesus Christ is demonstrating human characteristics throughout his life up until the last moments. He is showing us his human side, and yet for us to turn around and say, no, he was also divine, is quite a strange speculation, or quite a strange ideology. So when it comes to Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, one of the first things we should note is that there's a lot of evidence that shows that he was a human being, simply a human being with all these characteristics and aspects. It reminds me of a book, The Case for Christ, I read a few years ago, where it talks about this aspect of Christian theology, and it was difficult for the expert who was being interviewed in that part of the book to explain this idea of God being incarnate, right? If God is the all-powerful, so even if he did take on the body, why did he take on all these pains and suffering and all that? And then why give up some of these other attributes that have nothing to do with all of this, which is things like being all-knowing. God is all-knowing, right? But we have Jesus at one point expressing his lack of knowledge, right? For instance, he says, regarding the hour, no one knows, not even the angels, nor the Son. So he expresses his lack of knowledge about something. He expresses he's already showing different kinds of weaknesses, so he's not all powerful. He is he has as if he has given up his divinity, or aspects of his divinity. And so if he has given up divinity, then where is the evidence for his divinity? Where is the evidence that he was truly divine? We have to rely on preconceived notions, preconceived ideas that Jesus was God who took on the body, but when he had the body, he did not have any divine attributes. And if he did not have any divine attributes, that means we have no evidence of him being divine. The promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, peace be upon him, has said that not only should Jesus have claimed to be God in very clear terms, he should have also demonstrated those divine attributes. And we have neither of these in the case of Jesus Christ. In fact, when it comes to his claim, if we read John chapter 10, verses 30 to 35 or 30 to 40, that whole incident with the Jews who accused him of blasphemy, he actually denies having said anything different from the metaphorical usage in the Bible. So he denies being clearly or distinctly God. He uses the word son of the phrase son of God, which is common in the biblical idiom. When it comes to his demonstrating his divine attributes, he does none of that. In fact, if we go back to the same passage in John chapter 10, what he should have done is that not only affirmed when the Jews accused him of blasphemy, he should have said, yes, I am God, and then he should have demonstrated this with divine attributes, some signs that could have clearly established his divinity. And we have none of that in the case of Jesus Christ, peace be upon him. So, when we look at the sources, when we look at the Bible, when we look at the New Testament, when we look at the words of Jesus Christ, we have none of these ideas that Christians later on invented regarding Jesus Christ, things like him being God incarnate or some other ideas that are related to that. And this is a problem, right? If Jesus was truly God, he should have been clear about it. He should not have said these things in such convoluted ways, right? That requiring so many interpretations and layers of interpretations before we can make certain conclusions about Jesus Christ, peace be upon him. So this aspect of Christianity, which is speculative theology, I believe it's quite problematic, generally speaking, for Christian thought and Christian theology in general. Jazakumullah ta'ala.